allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Larry Armstrong.
Here.
Sean Douglas.
Here.
Michael Howery.
Here.
Michelle Hayes.
Here.
Gene Sensi.
Here.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll
Second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the organizational meeting held January 9th, 2018?
So moved. I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting from January 9th, 2018? I'll move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting held January 20th, 2018?
So moved.
I'll second. Discussion? Roll call.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0.
We're going to do board member reports. I'd like to start off with a couple moments of silence. As a school board member, the safety of our students is always at the forefront of our decision-making process. When a tragedy such as the shooting last week at Stoneman Douglas High School occurs, we take time to reflect and examine our own policies and procedures. We also want to take time to remember the 17 lives that were lost last week in that horrific tragedy. We now pause in a moment of silence for the students and staff members whose lives were cut way too short.
We have another moment of silence. Last week, the Madison schools lost one of our teachers way too soon. Jeff Greer passed away surrounded by his family last Thursday night. Jeff had been a teacher with the Madison local schools for 17 years. As staff and students have reflected about Jeff, these words have emerged: talented, kind, caring, and genuinely nice. While Jeff was a very private person, he always lit up when talking about his wife and his children. Jeff never turned down a request for his art, coming through with whatever was asked of him. He was known at the high school for his personalized caricatures, and those of us lucky enough to have them will always treasure them. He is most well known throughout the nation for his painting, I'll Take It From Here. The original painting is on display at the Pentagon, and a print is also on display at the 9/11 Museum in New York City. Jeff's humor, passion for art, and compassion for others will be greatly missed. Jeff was one of those teachers who will leave a huge footprint throughout the district and community. Our thoughts are with his wife Liz, his daughter Ginny, and son Edward. In addition, Jeff leaves behind his parents, his in-laws, and 9 brothers and sisters, as well as many nieces and nephews. Let us take a moment of silence to reflect on the life and talent of Jeffrey Scott Greer.
All right, with the section for board member reports. Are there any board members who would like to report?
I'd just like to say something about Mr. Greer. His artwork's on the wall right there. It's quite a touching piece, being a firefighter myself. But my daughter goes to OU now, and when she heard the news, she texted me right away, and she said, "Dad, all the kids love Mr. Greer." And that's the simplest, best tribute I can even think of.
Friday, I spent all day at the high school with the staff and students there, and, you know, just everything that everybody said, but the best tribute was what the kids had organized, because they had heard on social media before I had even had official confirmation, and many of them went to Walmart, cleaned out Walmart of all their flowers, and they created a huge tribute, because when we added on to the Streak Shack, Jeff was in process of making a Madison M logo, so that was a place for students to be able to take pictures at graduation or homecoming or different awards programs. And we put tables out, and they lined the tables with these flowers and artwork and different banners that the kids had been working on for Project Unify. So just a beautiful, beautiful tribute, and just a very special person, you know. Always had a kind word, always had a smile, always wanted to know how other people were doing. Just a great, great guy.
Any other board member reports? We'll now open the first public participation section for this evening. This is on agenda items only. If you could state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes to address the board. Seeing none, move to reports and recommendation of the treasurer.
Thank you. The first item being passed out is just something I put together over the last few weeks. Just the different things I do as treasurer for the district. It's not just all about counting money, and I thought it'd be interesting for the board to see the varied activities that happen around here on a daily basis. So I'll just let you guys take that home and do with it what you will. The second thing, can I have one? Thanks. The second item I'm passing out is something I give the board every year after the new tax rates are set. There are two graphs showing the effective tax rates for all the Lake County schools. As you can see, Madison continues to be second lowest in the county for effective millage. Effective millage is what the taxpayers actually pay on. The millage for operations for the Lake County schools range from a low of 25.76, that's parity, to a high of 52.64. Madison is at 32.32, and that's for operations. Now, it is higher than it was last year at this time because of the passage of the levy in May. And Riverside also passed a levy last year, so we both moved up. The millage for all levies, which includes operations, permanent improvements, and debt service, ranges from a low of 25.76, meaning Perry has only operational levies, to a high of 52.64. And Madison is at 36.48. If you look, there are 4 districts for all levies that their effective millage is over 50 mils. 3 of us are under 40, 2 are in the 40s, 4 of them are over 50. So we continue to do a lot with the support that we get from the local taxpayers. And the next item I'm passing out is something that my office has to have prepared every year. In addition to the audits we go through and the financial statements we prepare on an annual and monthly basis, this is, I think it's 18 of the 100 and some pages of a report called the Annual Financial Information Statement. It's required because we have outstanding debt, and it gets updated every year, and it provides information to those people that invested in the school district by buying our bonds mostly when we built the 2 new buildings. It's different than the audit. It has less strict financial information, and it's more global about Lake County. There's who's the largest employers in Lake County, how many building permits. It's just a different avenue to get information to those people that have invested in us. There is some district information, like our district enrollment, financial condition of the district, the assessed valuation, who our largest taxpayers are, which was pretty interesting because I had to look up the second. As it's listed, that's the company name. It's actually Lakeside Village Apartments over on Haynes and Chapel Road. And I think Walmart's third. Real estate tax information, sources of income, history of our levies. So it's just different information than you typically get in the audit. Now, I will tell you, the other 100 or so pages is just a copy of our audit. It's a copy of our 5-year forecast. And I think that's it. Those are the two items that I just decided not to copy all that. There's other avenues to get that. Thought this would be just something different for the board to look at to gain an understanding of the school district as a whole.
You know, I just have a quick question, and really it doesn't have so much to pertain to this, but the taxpayers. Does Walmart, I see that they don't pay much more than the rest of them do. Is that because they got a significant tax break for moving in there, and will that expire?
It's a combination of things. One, I think there might be some of that, but it's more they fight their value every single year. And we fight back. But as soon as a Walmart opens a store, they start fighting the initial value.
Really?
And they just keep hammering it, yeah.
Wow.
But what isn't on there is, like the gas station is a separate entity. It's Murphy Oil, I think. So that's not included in the Walmart part, but I know they fight also. Yeah, we have, our attorneys look at the Walmart property every single year to see if what they are requesting is reasonable.
Wow.
Any questions on
Thank
what I
you.
passed out?
I appreciate the information.
You're welcome. So on to the items that are in the agenda. The first is to approve the financial reports for all funds, fund-to-fund transfer report, and the check payment register for January 2018.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Larry Armstrong,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0. And the next is to approve the Ohio Schools Council cooperative advertising and receiving bids on behalf of the school district. And again, we've listed so many different options between the 6-4, or the 3-4 conventional, 3-4 transit style, conventional, the engines kind of showing up front, transit is the flat nose. Because we don't know until the bids come in what exactly we want and can afford. So this allows us the option to look at 6 different types of buses, and going through the Ohio School Council, it doesn't cost us anything to bid. The Ohio School Council pays for the bid. So we're able to get a large range of costs at no additional cost to the district.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Larry Armstrong,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0. And finally, to accept a generous donation of school supplies from Joe and Bill Hudson to South Elementary School to be used as needed.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just thank you very much for the donations.
Thank you very much. They're my neighbors. Roll call?
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0. That's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Report to the administrative team?
Okay. Before I turn it over to Officer Caswell, I'm just going to quickly go through the few things that I have for this evening. First of all, our Wonder One Book, One Community is up and running. There are so many things going on. We have a MLS Wonder Facebook page, and people are tagging things that they're doing in it. The elementary schools are having a Promote Kindness Week and doing all sorts of different activities. This man at the back, Joe Measle, put all 123 chapters together, so that is on the web page and on the YouTube channel. And that was a lot of work because, as he said, he wished the author would have put page numbers with her table of contents. So there was a little challenge in putting it together. But so many good things going on. I was in a classroom, 2 classrooms today at the high school where they took different precepts, because there's a book of quotes that Mr. Brown, the teacher, uses throughout the year, and they took each one of those precepts and then illustrated it, and we're going to judge them, Mr. Fisher and I, and give some prizes to the best posters. But they will be up and around the high school cafeteria so that they'll be out and about for the next couple weeks through Project Unify. Speaking of Project Unify, it has been moved to March 2nd. Due to the events of the past week, we felt that it would be more appropriate to have that kind of activity delay it 1 more week. But another really cool thing going on there is that they're taking, at lunchtime, the kids in the multiple handicap unit are sitting there with puzzle pieces and asking students to fill out their piece of the puzzle. And they are lined up right now down the home ec hallway, heading into the cafeteria, and their goal is to have it all around the cafeteria. And there's some really neat messages. As I was in the building today, I see the chain growing, or the pieces of the puzzle, and showing how we're all connected in one way or another. And that really also goes along with the theme of wonder, because we all got something.
Now, is Project Unify start at 10?
10:30 is the actual start time, but I'd get there about 10:15 next Friday. It is a wonderful, wonderful event. Couple other things. As a result of the events of the last week, Pastor Mike and I talked about postponing the State of the Schools that we were going to do next week and moving it to Tuesday, April 3rd. I'm going to verify with everybody that date is a good date, but that's the date we're looking at. That would be the Tuesday after spring break. That would give us time to put a really quality presentation together, because last week we were rather distracted by several things. One of them we're going to be talking about here shortly. And some good news, I know Sean can talk about the swimming sectionals, but Gabby Blackford is, she placed first place in the vaulted sectionals, so she will be down at West Geauga in districts competing in that event, the all-around and floor exercises. So good luck to Gabby this weekend, and we may have another state qualifier. Sean, did you want to talk about swimming at all?
Oh, sure.
I think you should.
So we had a number of students who were at the district championship for Northeastern Ohio. And we had my son, Colin Douglas, set a new Madison High School record in the 200 individual medley. Time of 2 minutes and 6 seconds and some 100ths. And then the relay, which also included my son, and it included Joey Smith, Owen Hennessy, and Zach Zembauer. They broke their own record that they had set the previous week, that they had set the previous year at the 200 relay. So it was a good day.
Very good,
And a lot of the swimmers also did very well too. But that's our own little record, so.
Yeah.
That's all right. Dave, did you have anything before I turn?
No,
Okay.
I don't.
All right. Well, in light of the events that happened in Florida last week, I thought it would be a good idea to invite Officer Caswell, who has worked very closely with the administrative staff on the district safety plans. He's really, over the last couple of years, taken lead as far as law enforcement and helping us to make sure we're where we need to be and keeping our students safe, and in conducting the necessary drills and making sure our cameras work and anything else related to safety. I mean, I can't say enough about the job Officer Caswell has done in that regard. So what I thought I'd have him do is give a little overview, and you guys can ask him questions as to things that you're thinking of or concerns that you have. Okay?
I'll just come up there so he can hear me. All right. But first, the cameras, every school building has some camera system Some certainly work better. The middle school and south are certainly better. The high schools has certainly improved. We got about 50 cameras that work. So they record. There's hard pressed to find anybody in the hallway that we can't track where they're going.
Awesome.
So that really works. There is great teamwork with the SROs in each building and the administrative staff. If we hear of anything, either social media, somebody says something to a teacher, that gets reported to staff, and we work as a team to track that down. I mean, one of the first things I do is go to the house. If there's anything at the house that's even remotely questionable, that kid doesn't come back to the building. Or he goes to jail. I mean, it's just, we're not playing around. If I'm gonna make an error, it's gonna be for the safety of one of our kids. That's just the bottom line in today's day and age. So the safety plans, we've been writing those since '99. So, you know, got a lot of that stuff down pretty good. We've refined it for each new building. South just had to have a change because we used to go to a different building. That building's closed, so now we're going somewhere else. We had to address that in the plan, and that has to be reported to the state. Some of that information is not necessarily public, so we can't really get into the specifics. We can certainly do that in an executive session. So, is there any specific questions or comments, concerns?
Training to the students. How do we deal with that?
They should have all been at least talked to about Alice. Now, the whole staff has been trained, was that in 14?
Yeah.
The whole staff was trained with Alice, which is alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate, or evade. And that basically leaves the teachers with the option to do what they think is best to save themselves and their kids. You know, we're not trying to restrain them, say, hey, you gotta lock your door and stay inside. And what I call the hide and hope mentality. You have to make a decision based on what's going on. And I know I spoke to every high schooler first day about it, what their options are, what they can do. So there is a plan. We're probably a year from it where we'll do an active drill. In that regard, we'll probably get volunteers and do it that way.
Because the state on a 3-year cycle can do a tabletop, then
Functional drill.
and then a scale
Yeah,
drill.
full-scale drill.
So-
That's just testing our plan to see if it's gonna work.
We have the door locks for every one of the doors, the barricade, is that what they're called?
They are there, and then Pat just checked them
Check those
within the
twice.
last couple
Yeah.
months.
They do check
Because the
them.
holes get filled up or the pins are missing, so we do have to check those and keep up on that.
Is there any times, it's my understanding with what happened in, you know, in this last scenario, the last situation that occurred, that SRO was not in the building. Do we have situations where SROs are not in the building?
Yes.
Okay. Is that specific times daily or routinely on a Tuesday at X amount of time?
Well, I certainly hope not.
Without naming it, yes,
Yeah,
but I'm
I
saying
certainly hope
these are
not.
things that we need to look at.
Yeah, there shouldn't be anything that's routinely anybody out of that building. Now, I'll go check, like if a kid's missing from school and we haven't seen him for a couple days, I'll go knock on their door. So, but if there's somebody specifically not where they're supposed to be, then we need to know about that and address that.
Something that I had mentioned to the other board members that I would like to discuss, and I would like your take on it. How do you feel about people patrolling the perimeter of our school buildings from the outside during those times that we have multiple doors open in our buildings? Dismissal and arrival times. How do you feel about people patrolling the perimeters from the outside, making sure that people aren't getting inside the building?
I'm not a real big fan of making a police state out of it, number one. But how are we gonna train these people? And how are we gonna pay for it?
Okay, Well, I think that.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly,
How we pay for it would be something that we would have to come up with.
Right.
But what I'm looking to you, or point us in the direction as to where we need to find out more about this possible,
well,
solution.
some of the solutions would be limit where kids come in at. Instead of having all the doors open or certain doors, limit the doors to be the bus loop. Everybody's got to walk around to those doors to come in. Instead of having, like you said, all the doors open. One of the things we did do at the high school is if a door is open for more than 5 minutes, there's an alarm that goes off. And now every single doors aren't. So,
Yeah, but certainly someone can slip in less than 5
Sure.
minutes.
and we could lock it down and have metal detectors on every door and take an hour for everybody to get in there and still miss a gun. The biggest single thing that we have that a lot of places don't have is open lines of communication with these guys. When they say something to us, we look at it. We don't ignore it. We don't pass it off. We look into it. If we keep talking to them and they keep talking to us, we'll stop all that stuff. That's our biggest challenge, is to keep those lines open.
And the students do come to us when they have concerns. And that is so important, and I think that's what we cover in those opening day meetings. That's what, anytime our SROs talk to a group of kids, they reinforce that. We are one of the few districts in the area that has an SRO in every building.
That's a good question. Are they in every building? Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have one here, but we have one right across the street if we need it.
So I know you're in contact with our superintendent regularly, but as the police department, is there anything that you would say to the school board that you need financially or otherwise to
Well,
better resource?
I ain't going there. You ain't putting me in that box.
Is there anything that you're missing that we should consider? Whether, I don't even know if there's such a thing now as national training regarding just schools
Yeah.
that
We-
we
okay.
can send officers to if they request it.
I am an ALIS trainer, which the school did pay for. So
Okay.
I can train anybody in Madison
Okay.
to do ALIS. It's not just school, it applies to the malls or Walmart or any of that place.
Okay.
But I do the ALIS training. We, as an agency, have trained in the buildings, and we're, for the most part, been open anytime we need to train. We go in the building and we do it. That's, if you walk around and see little simulation stuff on the floor, it's because we shoot stuff at each other.
Okay.
It's not, we don't play. We're going in, and there's a mission to take care of.
Okay.
And that's what our training is.
I think what I would like to explore myself, and certainly would have to be, the determination of the board, but I would really like to explore how we protect our buildings from the outside rather than defend them from the inside. Because I understand that you do lots of training inside the building, but what do we do outside of the building to make sure that people aren't getting inside?
I don't know
Cameras on
that,
the
I can't
outside?
answer.
Who's watching the cameras? Do we have somebody watching those cameras the entire time someone is in the building?
We don't have somebody that's sitting on a desk watching those cameras, no. There's record time, and that's certainly an option if we can hire a $10 an hour employee maybe to sit down and watch cameras, if that's something we choose to do. We can have the access, you can do it here at the board. So, I mean, that's certainly an option, but
Okay.
Is there resources that schools can look to for guidance on security issues and how to just improve their
There-
security overall?
there is any number of companies that would be more than happy to come out and do an assessment for a price.
Consultants.
Oh, absolutely.
And how open would you be to having a consultant come in just to take a look at our operation here? I mean, we'd want to get something out of it, and we
Right, absolutely. And really, the best thing is to have a third party come in and do an objective assessment of what you got.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And like county collaboration, I mean, something happens and you put the call out, how many different agencies are gonna arrive all at once?
Just about everyone you can think of.
And I had the unfortunate experience of being in charge of the fire department in Willoughby when we had a kid fire off 3 rounds at South High School.
Mhm.
And a big part of our job, we weren't police officers, but I was on the scene, a huge part of our job was managing parents.
Yep.
Stampeding to the scene, demanding to find their children.
Right.
And it wasn't easy, and there was, maybe the Willoughby Police Department had a plan in place, and maybe the wheels fell off when access was lost because there was 500 cars on Shanklin Boulevard trying to get to the school.
We've been kind of addressing that specific issue.
Yeah.
And when I talked to the high school kids, the first thing they were told is if we ever have an incident, don't get in the car. If you choose to leave the building, go. Do not drive in a car leaving the school. I've seen how they drive without it being an emergency. I don't mean it necessarily to be funny, but it's just one accident on Burns Road, and the 80 cops that are on the way aren't gonna get there.
Exactly, and those are the things that can and will
Right.
happen. And,
Absolutely.
And you have to plan
Yeah.
B, C, D.
And then we can meet in executive session to talk about what we're planning with parents as far as pickups go. And to stop that rush to the specific building. Because that's a huge concern. Because safety forces got to get there. We got to get squads in and out. God forbid we have anything bad happen. But we have to have a road that's open. And take it for what it's worth, but the township will have a bulldozer pushing cars off the road. That's built into our plan.
Sadly,
They'll just bring a front end loader and we'll just push them out of the way.
the more shootings happen, the more experience is gained
Uh-huh.
and what works and what doesn't work. And
Right.
it's a shame that that's
Right.
the way it is, but that is the way it is. And maybe this last shooting, there's going to be information flowing out of that, well,
Well,
But it doesn't.
absolutely. Yeah, I know when I first started, the change in the mission was the police department would surround the building and have the SWAT guy call them and hopefully nobody else got hurt. And then it went to having the first 4 people that showed up. Well, in Madison, in day shift, you might have 3. So now it's single officer response, first guy in goes. Nobody's waiting anymore, we're going in. So that's the growth of how this has sadly progressed for all of us.
This is a horrible question to have to ask, horrible.
Okay?
But do our officers have access to weapons that can match up to what these gunmen are carrying? I mean,
Well-
one man with a pistol versus one man with an automatic rifle. Do our officers
I don't know that the
officers
SROs
need-
do, and that's a double-edged sword. You want an SRO walking around with a rifle strapped on their back, that now you gotta worry about somebody grabbing.
And then I
But everybody's armed with a pistol and mags, and I have extra stuff in my office, so first aid kit and that kind of thing, so.
And then are you familiar with any type of government, well, not just government entity, but whether it be courthouse or hospital or any of those types of public places? Are you familiar with any of them that do, patrol the perimeter to secure their buildings? Or is everyone just basically securing their buildings from the inside?
That's probably from place to place gonna be different. I mean, I'm sure there's some hospitals that have exterior patrols, depending on what the time of day and where they're located.
I'm just trying to figure out where we even locate information about that type of...
I'm gonna bet that it's gonna be more location to location and dealing with what you have as a community. Because in some places, putting up 10-foot fences with barbed wire would be the answer. In other places, having a nice camera system, limiting access is the answer. Funneling everybody into one set of doors. We have to, gauge that with, depending on who our kids are.
Are you aware of any other Lake County school districts doing it differently than we do as far as cameras and that type of protection, or is it all basically the same in Lake County?
It's basically the same, but I'm sure that some are doing it better. Some have more guys in. Riverside's got a few more guys in their high school. They have a couple deputies that all they do is attendance. They sit at the door. Plus they have the SRO in the building. So, I mean, from place to place it's gonna be a little bit different depending on what they got going on.
But no, you don't know of any outside perimeter?
I mean, I can't say that I know of that.
Okay.
I mean, I'd hate to think that we gotta put a fence around the whole building or,
Right.
so.
Well, as a pastor with a lot of tentacles in the community, I've been recently asked, a lot of questions. I just want to thank you for coming. You've given me a huge boost in confidence in our competency. I think for a small community, you guys are just way ahead of the game there. So thank you for all that you do and the continued good thinking and planning and everything that helps us feel safe in our community.
Right, we're trying. Okay, thanks.
Thank
I just
you.
have one more question. How much, like between physical security and your channels with the students, what do you think is more important, or what do you think is most effective?
The most effective thing is communication. Every time, if you go back and do the research, actually New York City has researched every single school shooting that has happened in this country. Every single time that kid's gonna tell somebody what he's gonna do. If we hear about it, we can stop it. There's nobody that does it in a vacuum. And the one challenge for you guys that are elected politicians is Ohio is one of the few states in the country that don't share information. So what I get, I can't necessarily share with the school. And the school can't necessarily share it with me, nor can Children's Services or the court unless a parent signs off on it. So that's kind of the big challenge, is getting our politicians on board with letting us share that information so we can collectively save our kids.
So let me understand if I'm hearing correctly. I hope I'm not, but if we get a tip from the Safe Schools line, we can't share that with you?
Well, if it's a threat to the school, you can't. But if somebody says Jimmy is being mean or whatever,
Just a behavior.
that's information that you can't share technically with an outside agency.
So it's completely
Without a release from a
possible that
parent.
you, on the outside, could be experiencing problems with that child. We could be experiencing problems with that same child in the school district, but neither one of us know because we can't share that information.
Correct. We're not legally allowed to share that information.
But with him in the school, we share a lot of information.
Right.
And we have that resource because he is in the school and that's his assignment.
So I'm saying is we need to step through that and start pushing people to let us share that information for the betterment of our kids.
Do you find that the kids are more likely to share directly with you or a teacher first?
One of the nice things about Madison is it seems like everybody's got a group of kids that they'll talk to. You know, I don't say they'll all share with me. They might pick Mr. Gilligan to talk to or Mrs. Clark or, somebody else. But there always seems to be somebody that they'll talk to.
Great, thank you.
Huh?
Thank you.
And, while we talked about the safety side of this, the counselors at the high school have been working very hard on the mental health piece. And it was on Tuesday afternoon that they presented a whole staff meeting on mental health and some of the things that our students deal with, from the aspects of, suicide to emotional disorders, anxiety, and reminding teachers that they're the first line of, defense. See something, say something, and students, tell your teachers if you've got a concern. Or the Safe Schools Hotline, which, is active in every building. We get those updated, on a regular basis if there's been a call. So we have various tools in place. As a county, we're also looking at some software that would allow us to scan various social media. And, you know, some of those tips of those triggers, so to speak. So, and that was, we were talking about that in the fall, and they revisited it, and I was not there on Thursday because of the situation with Mr. Greer, but they revisited it at our superintendent's meeting last week, so I am gonna look at that pricing and see what that would involve. But for me, the number one thing I worry about most, and is most important to me, is the safety and well-being of our students. Because they can't learn if they don't feel safe, and if those needs aren't being met. So, it is the biggest worry in these jobs.
You know what I'd like to see happen tomorrow morning? First block. You know every one of those kids sitting in first block has a cell phone on them. The teacher have them pull it out and program that safe school numbers into their phone. How many of those kids know that number just like that? How many of them have them in the phone? Probably don't. And it would be nice for them to have easy access to that if they heard something and needed to report that.
I agree.
And I'm going to remind the youth of the church that I speak to tomorrow night that there's 50 cameras in the high school and they're always being watched.
And, you know, and that's due to a lot of hard work with Ralph, working on where we had gaps. I like to call them the dance halls, but, you know, for a long time, those dance halls up on the second floor, because it's big enough you could have a dance in it, where the lockers used to be, didn't have that visible protection. And now we've got, I mean, great angles that you can see things and know what's going on. And just as I remind staff, and I know I talked to Mrs. Bapke today with MEA again, and she's going to remind them, keeping those doors closed. You know, I know we like to be open and we like people to see what, you know, is happening in our classrooms, but it's critical that the doors stay closed during the day when there's kids in those rooms. So.
Well, and I don't know if we have to discuss it in executive session, but maybe we should look at how we're handling arrival and dismissals.
We probably should talk about that, yeah, in an executive session. So, anything else? I want to thank Officer Caswell for
Yes, thank you.
coming. He's a busy guy this time of year with multiple evening events that keep him tied up at the high school, and so I said, you don't have an event tonight? Come speak. All right, I'm ready for my recommendation. So under the personnel, we have a rather short personnel motion this evening. We're asking you to approve the following employment contracts. Pam Grinstead under a long-term substitute teacher contract from January 29, 2018 through March 23, 2018 to perform the duties of Karen Doyle. We're asking you to approve the transfer from Mandy White from a 3-hour high school cafeteria cashier position to a 3.5-hour high school cafeteria cashier effective January 30th, 2018. We're asking you to adjust the, oops, that's one motion, sorry. So it was so short, I thought I had to keep reading.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Michael Howry,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0.
Okay, and then the second item is to adjust the following classified seasonal employee rates effective January 1st, 2018. Maintenance to $10.30 per hour and technology $10 per hour.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michael Howry.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0.
And we have one item on the consent calendar this evening to approve the addition of a transition to work course that will be offered by special education staff during the ice block at Madison High School for the 2018-19 school year.
Come on.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0.
Anything additional, Angela?
No, I don't have anything to add to the agenda, public participation, and then I do need executive session for, do you want Ralph tonight?
I think so, yeah, he's
Okay.
here, so
So
take advantage.
we'll have a couple things in executive
All right,
session.
so we'll now open the second public participation portion for the evening. This could be on any item. We'd ask that you state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes to address the board. All right, seeing none, we do have a need for executive sessions for, which is it, 1 and 5?
1 and 6.
1 and 6. So is there a motion to go into executive session for the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of public employees or regulated individuals, for the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or regulated individual unless such person requests a public hearing? And second is for the specialized details of security arrangements where disclosures of matters discussed might reveal information that can be used for the purpose of committing or avoiding prosecution for a violation of law.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0.